about social media and county government. I work for Hennepin County, which is the most populous county in Minnesota. I represent social media across the organization, including 41 libraries, health and human services, and all of our transportation, transit, housing community works projects. I coordinate all of those, but I don't write all of the content for every account. I do, on the other hand, manage the main Hennepin accounts. And you'll see there, @Hennepin is our Twitter handle. Our Facebook page is at facebook.com/Hennepin. Thank you for following or liking Hennepin County on social media. What exactly is social media? Well, social media is simply a network of interconnected objects that are user contributed. In the case of Flickr, it's photographs. In the case of Tumblr, it's blog posts. In the case of Facebook, it's user profiles. And in Twitter, it's simply 140-character updates. So people go on to Twitter, they log in, and they simply add 140-character status updates. Why 140 characters? Twitter was originally designed for SMS and cell phones. And for that reason, it continued, once it was moved to the computer and not exclusively on phones, to be limited to 140 characters. Some social media networks are about one specific topic. My favorite social media network is Ravelry, which is a community that is dedicated to crochet and knitting. And it's a place where people share patterns, information about skeins of yarn in their stash, photographs of their projects, and whether or not they liked using different patterns. So it could be a variety of different things. The power of social media is the user's contributions. Facebook would be nothing without billions of users giving all kinds of personal data to make it the robust network that it is. Flickr would not be anything but a shell if it weren't for the thousands, millions of photos that people have uploaded and shared. There are a lot of different ways that government can contribute to that. In the case of Flickr, we look at things like the Library of Congress or the National Archives, who have shared thousands of photographs and information about those photographs in Flickr that are public domain. So how do we participate in social media at Hennepin County? Primarily, we're using Facebook and Twitter. We do have Flickr photos as well. At the Hennepin County Library, we use Tumblr, we use Instagram, and also Facebook and Twitter. What social media isn't is email or text messaging. Those are both examples of communication methods, but they're not social in the sense that they're not public. They are not about user-generated content living on a shared platform. There are many pros and cons to using social media, and one of the big pros is that we look savvy as local government. On the flip side, we can look less than savvy when we don't know how to use a site, or we try something, leave it, and then leave behind a trail of graveyard accounts. One of the pros of social media is that it's available 24 hours a day. A con would be that it's available 24 hours a day, and most of us don't run our business on a 24-hour cycle the way people expect to use it. So instead, we have to set expectations and make sure that folks understand when we're going to respond, that we will respond within 24 hours of a post. I do work weekends and nights, and I do answer questions during those times. We have some other services that work like that at the county. Certainly, some of our emergency responders respond that way. We also have consortial relationships with the library to answer questions during off hours. Another pro of social media is that it allows for people to see you interact with your customer. Now, this can also be a con, and a lot of times staff are interested in taking a question offline the second they see something on Facebook or on Twitter. Let me answer that question for you on the phone. Let me give you a phone number to call or an email address to email. I don't have a public answer. Well, in this case, I would encourage you to find a public answer, because chances are if someone's asking a question on a public forum, they want a public answer, and others are going to ask the same question. So offering an answer that allows for some information to be shared or some insight to be shed on the topic is a good idea. Do you have a choice about whether or not to participate in social media? At this point, I would say probably not. That ship has sailed. Many organizations and companies have incredibly robust presences on social media, and there is an expectation that you will also be there and answer questions. If you're not, chances are people are still asking those questions, creating profiles for you, and not always giving the best information. By choosing to be in the venue where people are talking about you, you have an opportunity to answer the questions. It's just like going out into the community and reaching out and addressing people where they are talking about you and your services. So more than a choice, I would say you have an opportunity. You can shape the vision that people have of your services and of your county. Do you need a social media policy to get started? In the case of Hennepin County, my answer is no. We don't need a social media policy. What we do need is some guidelines and a couple of other documents. The first is the Code of Employee Conduct. One of the biggest concerns that administrators have is how employees will use social media on work time. This should be addressed by your Code of Employee Conduct and your computer use policy, the same as your email policy or other technology policies. Your Code of Employee Conduct will also determine how employees spend their time and how you are designating that. Your media policy is also really important because it will determine how your employees speak to the media, like news, television, maybe print. And that media policy is also a place where you can remind people that social media is the same as talking to the media if someone is representing themselves as your county. So why have guidelines instead? Well, for one thing, guidelines don't always have to be approved by a board or a council. Instead, they can be something that is shaped by someone in your communications department, with your HR department, or public affairs. So what are some of the guidelines that we use? One would be that what you say on social media is the same as saying it on television. Anyone can share that information. Anyone can view that information. And even if you have a locked down account, you should still treat it the same way. I often tell my contributors that whatever you post is the same as something you want to be comfortable saying to your next employer. Another piece of guidelines is helping employees by offering a statement that they can use on their accounts, like, opinions here are my own. Even though I use Twitter personally and I identify myself as an employee of Hennepin County, it says opinions here are my own on my account. And that gives me a little bit of leeway so that I'm not answering questions on behalf of the county. And so that people understand that I'm not stating an official county position when I share information. Online community management. My job title is Online Community Manager. What is that exactly? Well, part of it is brand and online reputation. So if you'll notice the icons below, they represent our different Hennepin County social media accounts, including the main account with the big H, our library account, GIS, Environmental Services and Emergency Management. What I do here is I maintain a contract with the contributors in each of these departments that's signed by their directors. And they will actually be accountable for making sure that the account is checked every 24 hours and that questions are either answered with a placeholder response like, we're working on an answer for you, we'll get back to you, or answered completely. It also ensures that I've got full-time employees working on Twitter, or Facebook, not interns or temporary employees or my least favorite, contractors. You know, in the past we've had issues where a contractor has left and taken the account with them, continues to contribute to it. So we want to be careful about who we're giving access to these accounts. It also ensures the frequency of posts. Excuse me. I have a little cold. The frequency of posts, which for Facebook I require an average of 3 to 5 posts a week, and on Twitter more. I want to make sure that those pages don't look like they've been neglected or not updated. So with that contract, it helps me vet whether or not contributors are serious about having an account. One of the things that we don't often allow is a project account, like a Twitter account for an individual highway that's being repaired, or a Facebook page for a group that's only going to meet for a year. Instead, we try to find other solutions, because the benefit of getting people to sign up or like or get their information into your feed is so great. We don't want to abuse or lose that opportunity. It's also important to have a plan to handle negativity online. And I'm going to attach in the notes here a link to the Air Force flowchart on how to handle online responses. There are 4 kinds of negative responses or negative posts on the internet, and they are a rager, a troll, an unhappy customer, and the misguided. This person here is a troll. They have used hyperbole, so they're obviously speaking in a grandiose way, and are trying to bait you. What a troll wants to do is get into an ugly, out-of-control argument. And they're going to provoke the contributor any way they can. Generally, you can tell this by looking at other things they post on other pages. They're equally wild or of one set of opinions. In this case, this person threatens to throw paint in the Mississippi because he's upset that the disposal facility wouldn't take his volume of paint. Usually with trolls, I give them one response. So in this case, they got a response that explained what the limitations were for our drop-off facilities and who they could contact if they had more questions. Beyond that one response, for trolls, the next point of contact is going to be just to monitor what they're posting. You don't want to continue to post answers to them. The second kind of unhappy, or I should say negative post, is by a rager. And a rager is someone who is so angry they're using profanity or caps, and you're not going to be able to say anything to calm them or to be able to change their mind. In the case of the rager, you want to just go ahead and, again, maybe offer one response and monitor. There are 2 kinds of responses that are negative on the internet that are important to respond to. One is the misguided. A person who is misguided or misinformed may have the wrong hours of operation for your service. They may have the wrong information about your board. It's important in that case to fix the facts. Gently come in and offer the correct answer, or offer some information about where they can find more. The other kind of negative response that's important to answer is the unhappy customer. Unlike the rager, they have a legitimate issue, but they aren't using profanity, they aren't shouting at you or using all caps, and they deserve some opportunity for you to say, I'm sorry you had a bad experience. It's really important to be human in this matter. So for example, when you do say, I'm sorry you had a bad experience, how do you say it? Do you say, we regret that you were inconvenienced by our outage? No, instead you want to say, I'm sorry you had a bad experience. Having a human voice, sounding like a person and not a robot, is a really important piece of social media. It lends authenticity to the account. So this is an example of where I was human on Twitter. Excuse me. I went for 3 days without power a couple summers ago. And I tweeted, I thought from my personal account, 3 days without power equals questionable fashion choices. The truth is, I accidentally tweeted it from Hennepin County. So who is at Hennepin? Well, if you look at the at Hennepin account on Twitter, you'll see it says in the biography, tweets are by Meg in Public Affairs. It helped set me up for the next thing I did. I deleted this tweet and I said, please excuse your online community manager. She hasn't had power for 3 days. People responded very positively to this. They sent messages that said, you're right, there have been questionable fashion choices in Hennepin County because of the power outage. They really laughed and enjoyed the whole humanity of it. There have been cases where corporations, businesses have not done a good job of responding in a human way, and they've been called on it. There are also cases where by explaining an error, an organization like the American Red Cross was able to turn around a situation and actually use it to their benefit. And the example there is some employees from the American Red Cross were excited about the weekend. One accidentally tweeted from the Red Cross account that he was going to pick up some Dog's Head beer and get slizzard or drunk. And so what happened was they then quickly realized their error, deleted the tweet, said nobody at the American Red Cross was inebriated, and apologized for it. Dog's Head Beer came back and said, hey, we want to make a donation this weekend for all of the people who buy this beer to donate to the American Red Cross. So they were able to turn it around and use that. Now, who is at Hennepin? My name being in the bio serves two things. One, it sets up expectations for a response. So if you know that Meg in Public Affairs is answering the question, I may not have the fastest answer about food stamps or about eligibility. But I do know who to call and how to get an answer. So a lot of times you'll see an answer that says something like, I'm working on a response for you. Let me hold on to that. Another example of this is that or another reason for this is that it's hard to rail against Meg in Public Affairs. But Hennepin County is sort of this big monolith, and Meg is that human controlling the account. So that ends our first half of this webinar, and next we have social media do's and don'ts. But if you have questions, please feel free to contact me, and my information is there. You're also welcome to reach out on Twitter at @meg. Thank you.